welcome to Monday Musings with the Blended Mama, gentle encouragement for busy women, fun and calm in the chaos. I'm Teresa, and whether you are starting your week with your planner open, you are heading to work, folding laundry, or maybe you're just enjoying a few quiet minutes with a cup of tea, thank you for spending a little bit of your Monday morning with me. Now, this season, we have been working our way, not necessarily in order, through some of the habits from How Women Rise. If you haven't read it, definitely recommend it. And this week's habit is one that when I first saw the title of the chapter, I wasn't entirely sure it would apply to me. So habit 3 in the book is called Overvaluing Expertise, because expertise is always a good thing, right? We want people to know what they are doing. I certainly want the person fixing my car to know what they're doing because I have absolutely no idea how to fix anything in it. I want the person doing my taxes to know what they're doing. That's my husband. And in my own day job, I have spent more than 20 years developing the technical knowledge and experience that helps me to do my job well. So we're definitely not going to spend the next few minutes talking about why expertise doesn't matter, because it does. But I have started thinking about what happens when being good at something becomes the thing that keeps us from going beyond it. Because sometimes your expertise may get you here, but growth may require something different. And I have definitely seen this in my day job. After you've been somewhere a long time, you naturally accumulate knowledge. You know the history behind why things are done a certain way. You remember the problem that happened 10, 15, 20 years ago that led to the process that everyone is following today, right? There are things that you don't even realize you know until you're trying to explain it to someone who wasn't there. And there's definitely value in that. But there's also an interesting thing that can happen when you become the person who knows how to do something really well. You become the person who does it. And if you're the only person who knows how to do it, well, now you're really the person who does it. And at some point, expertise can actually pigeonhole us, right? Not because anyone is intentionally trying to hold us back, but because if no one else knows how to do what we do, it's pretty difficult for us to move on to something different, which means that growth may require something that feels a little bit uncomfortable. And that is that we have to teach someone else, right? We have to let them try. We have to let them do it differently than we would. And maybe that is the really hard part. Or at least this part is for me. We have to let them be not quite as good as we are yet, right? Because they're learning. And it's something I've been thinking about in my personal life too. We've been dealing with a lot of medical challenges for my son, who is a young adult. And there were certainly adult responsibilities that I've handled for him for years, right? Because I'm mom. So phone calls, following up on things, doctor's appointments, figuring out who needs to be called next when something doesn't go the way it's supposed to, like dealing with insurance, all those really fun parts of being an adult. And now that he is an adult, and we're going through all this, I am intentionally turning more of those responsibilities over to him. Now, is he as experienced in making these calls as I am? Nope. I definitely have to walk him through step by step. Well, what did this person say? Okay, well then now you have to go do X, Y, Z, right? Would it be faster for me to just do it? Absolutely. Have been considering it this week because we still have some more follow-up calls to do because things are not progressing. Do I occasionally have to stop myself from jumping in and taking over? Yes, this week, right now, like this morning. Because being an adult, it definitely kind of stinks sometimes. But here's the thing, right? If I continue to jump in and do something simply because I'm better at it, he never gets the opportunity to become better at it and work through those hard things himself, right? And so I think that's where this habit that we're talking about today can get interesting, because sometimes expertise tells us it'll be easier if I do it. But growth is asking, but does it still need to be mine to do? And those are two very, very different questions. Sometimes growth isn't about becoming better at the thing we're already good at. Sometimes it's about learning how to release it. I've experienced the other side of this too, right? This podcast is actually a really good example. So before Monday Musings was a podcast, I was already doing something similar as a live video in my community, and it was still called Monday Musings. But I would sit down, share something I'd been thinking about that morning, that week, whatever, connect it to planning, life, and hopefully give you guys encouragement for the week ahead. And I got a lot of good feedback about it. And so then my brain shifted to, well, how do I reach more people with it? Because it was just in my private community. And, what is going to be sustainable? What's going to be best for me long term? So I was like, well, why don't you turn this into a podcast? I had friends doing podcasts, and I was like, if they can do it, I can do it, right? But my next thought after that was, but I don't know how to podcast. Now, I mean, like I said, I had friends that were doing it, and I knew if they could figure out how to do it, I could. But there were definitely a lot of things I didn't know. What equipment do I need? How do I edit it? Where do I host it? How do I distribute it? What's the right way to structure it? And I could have stayed there in all those questions and so many more for a very long time, because if there's one thing I know how to do, it's make a plan and then add more detail to the plan and perhaps research the details of the plan and then make the plan even better, right? I know no one else can relate to that, but sometimes planning is really helpful, and sometimes planning gives us a very productive looking place to hide, right? Because I didn't actually need to become an expert in podcasting before I started the podcast. I already knew how to do the most important part. I knew how to have the conversation. The technical pieces, I could learn those as I went, and I'm still learning them. The podcast isn't perfect. There's probably a lot of things that I could do better. I'm certainly not a podcasting expert. You get one recording, friends. I don't edit. I just don't. So you get all the bloopers live here on your favorite podcasting platform, because I don't know how to do it, and sometimes I just don't know if it's worth my time. But here we are. You're listening to season 3, episode 6, right? So that means that starting something before I knew everything seems to be working out okay. And I think there are probably things in your life where you're doing the same thing, right? Maybe you have been thinking about starting a business or applying to a different position at work or creating something or leading something or trying a new hobby or volunteering somewhere. And you keep thinking, I just need to learn a little bit more first, right? I'm sure you've had that thought. And maybe you do need to learn a little bit more. Sometimes you do need a little bit of the details. We genuinely need more information. But sometimes the technical details become a really convenient reason not to start, because starting means we might not be very good at it yet. Starting means that someone might see us learning. It might mean that we don't get to hide behind the preparation anymore, right? And I see this in our Purpose and Progress Place membership community sometimes, right? And we talked about this in our book club. They have ideas, they have goals, they know what they want to work toward, but then they get caught in the details of everything they don't know yet. And suddenly that first step feels enormous, right? And that's actually part of why we're implementing something new in our membership group this month. It's basically online co-working sessions, but we call it the execution room. And no, it's not where things go to die. It's the room where you're finally executing the tasks on your to-do list. Okay. So you show up, you bring the thing that you've been putting off. There's someone else in there working on their thing, and you just work, right? It's not another class. It's not another training session. It's not another planning session. It's just some space and a little accountability to actually begin. Because sometimes the next step isn't learning more. Sometimes the next step is practicing what you do already know. And I've realized that some of the skills that have mattered most in my own growth aren't the technical skills anyway. They're asking good questions. They are listening. They are building relationships and learning how someone else thinks, and giving people space to figure things out instead of immediately telling them how I would do it. Those aren't necessarily the skills we put at the top of a resume, but they have become some of the skills that I value the most. Which brings me to our planners, because there's a question worth asking ourselves this week, and I hope you'll jot this down. Am I preparing, or am I hiding in preparation? And if that made you say, ouch, you're not alone. I didn't like that question to myself either. But I want you to take a look through your planner. Is there something like a task that keeps moving forward? If you're like me and you do bullet journaling, whenever I have a task that I didn't do on one week and it needs to go forward, I draw a line through it with an arrow, and then it makes it onto the next week's to-do list. It keeps me from having to flip backward, right? But is that keeping me from moving forward? Are there things that I just keep moving from week to week to week? Is it research or learning about something, figuring something out, planning, preparing? Maybe you have written the task 3 times because you're doing what I do. Maybe you have a beautiful project plan in your planner. You just haven't done anything with it. Maybe you watch 6 YouTube videos about it, but again, haven't applied anything. Maybe you have 17 browser tabs open. I did close a bunch before I started this recording this morning. But at some point, what would the do version of that task look like? Not finishing it, not mastering it, right? Just doing something with it. Maybe it's sending an email, maybe it's making a phone call, creating an account, writing the first paragraph, recording the first 5 minutes, right? What would the do version of that task look like? So I want you to think about taking one step that moves you from learning about the thing to actually doing the thing. So I've been thinking about this idea of growth in another area of my life as well. So my husband and I actually talked about it this weekend, and I am continuing to downsize and get rid of things around my house, right? It's been a joint effort with my husband, but I will tell you, he is absolutely so much better at it than me. He has zero emotional attachment to objects. Like, it doesn't matter that it was like his childhood photos. He's like, I mean, I don't care. I care. And so we're keeping those, but he doesn't get attached to things. So we've been working to really let go of things that we never use and are just taking up physical space in our home, right? And I've been surprised by how much emotional space all of that stuff was taking up too, right? Things I wasn't using, things I just didn't really enjoy anymore, things I kept simply because, well, I'd always kept them, and they literally moved from my last house to this house, you know? And it occurred to me that for a lot of my life, growth has looked like adding, right? Learning something new, making a better plan, adding another tool, taking on more responsibility, knowing more, doing more. But maybe growth doesn't always require adding things. Maybe sometimes growth requires creating space, handing something over, letting something go, trusting what we already know, and making room to see what we actually enjoy, what matters to us, and where we might want to go next. Your expertise may get you here, but growth may require something different. So before we wrap up, here's the reflection question I want you to sit with this week. Where am I continuing to prepare when I may already know enough to begin? You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have every detail figured out. And you certainly don't have to be the expert before you're allowed to take the first step. So this week, I want you to take just one little step. Find one thing in your planner that you've been preparing to do. And I'm going to give you a hint. It's probably that thing that you keep moving from week to week to week, right? And instead of learning one more thing about it, I want you to take one small execution step. That's it. No new course, no prettier plan, no 17-tab research session. Just one step. Because maybe growth isn't asking you to know more right now. Maybe it's asking you to trust what you already know, to ask the question, to hand something over, to clear some space, or simply to begin. My friend, your expertise matters. The things you've already learned matter. The years you have spent developing your skills matter. But we don't have to hold so tightly to what got us here that we leave no room for what's next. Because again, your expertise may get you here, but growth may require something different. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me this morning. If this episode encouraged you, I would love for you to share it with a friend who might be stuck in preparation mode too, because I guarantee you, you are not alone. You will find some links in the show notes to learn more about the Purpose and Progress Place and explore some of my favorite planning resources. You can go to theblendedmama.com/links to grab those. And until next time, my friend, remember, you probably don't need 17 more browser tabs. You might just need to begin. I hope that you guys have a fantastic week, and I will see you right back here next Monday.